Hey, mister. I'm the daughter of this company's owner, all right? My dad's the boss. Don't lump me with these lowly, poor employees. Surprised by both her vulgarity and her true identity, my dad paused with a shocked expression, then cleared his throat softly. Meanwhile, Carol wore a smug look, as if she had just made a grand statement. Remembering that Dad originally came to our company for business, I realized we couldn't afford to cause any more trouble. So I tried to apologize to Carol. Just then, Dad spoke in a low voice. So, the lower ranks are the poor employees, huh? Maybe it's time to revise the salary structure. He muttered this almost to himself. What? Are you mocking me? Fine. Mister, what's your name? Which subcontractor do you work for? I'll tell Dad about you. It might just be your fault if the company goes under. Carol retorted. Dad, looking slightly puzzled, thought for a moment before breaking into a smile. Then, let's go say hello to the boss. Lenore and the others, come along. Everyone except Dad looked shocked, but he walked ahead. Not wanting to be left behind, we hurried after him. My name is Lenore. I'm a hardworking 28-year-old. The company I work for is quite large, and I work tirelessly every day. My dad, concerned about me, contacts me once a week, but I always reply with, "Don't worry." Trying to reassure him, almost forcibly. His concern is probably because he wants to recruit me to his company. 7 years ago, when I was still a college student, I was busy with job hunting every day to secure a job offer. Dad, who runs his own company, once invited me to join his company, saying, "Why bother with job hunting? You can just come work for my company." It's not that I didn't want to go to his company, but I didn't want to rely on such connections. I wanted to succeed on my own merit. And I wanted to work alongside him, as an equal, once I was fully competent at my job. I explained this and persuaded him. Reluctantly, he agreed, and I joined my current company. It's been 6 years since I started working here. Now, I have more responsibilities, and I even have subordinates. And it's our busy season. It's not uncommon for our department heads to be absent from the office for an entire day during this time, and sometimes I can't even sit at my desk for more than 30 minutes. We're that busy. I don't have the luxury of constantly worrying about Dad's feelings. Today, I've been bustling around the office since morning. Even amidst the rush, a shrill voice caught my ear as I passed by a meeting room, prompting me to stop. The door was slightly ajar, and peering inside, I saw a woman with a tray bowing her head before another woman who sat arrogantly, berating her. "How many times do I have to tell you? I don't like coffee, I want Coke." It seemed the employee had brought the wrong beverage. The angry woman looked younger than me, but whose guest was she? A frequent complainer, perhaps? It's disgraceful to fuss over complimentary beverages. I wondered what her parents would think. Just as I was about to open the door and intervene. Ah, there she goes again. I heard a voice behind me. Turning around, I saw my colleague Sissy peeking into the room. "You scared me. Don't just start talking out of nowhere." I chided her in a whisper, careful not to be overheard. "Sorry. But it's unexpected to see you peeking, Lenore," she said with a mischievous grin. Sissy is only a year younger than me, even though she's my subordinate. We get along well and often go out for drinks. Professionally, she's my subordinate, but in our private lives, we're like friends. I wasn't peeking. "By the way, Sissy, do you know who that woman is?" I asked. "Oh, she's quite notorious around here," Sissy replied with a slight smirk. "That's Carol, the boss's only daughter." "His daughter? But why is she here?" I inquired, puzzled. "She occasionally comes to play around like this, throwing her weight around with the staff. No one dares to contradict her because she's the boss's daughter." As Sissy explained, Carol continued to berate the employee. "Go buy me a Coke. What's your name? I'll tell Dad," she shouted. I want to help that employee, my colleague, but I hesitated. Let's get back to work for now, Lenore. Sissy suggested. Poor thing, we don't keep Coke for guests. Sissy gently closed the meeting room door, holding the handle that I was gripping. She enjoys bossing the staff around like this. She never actually reports anyone. Last week, it was ginger ale. You have work to do, Lenore. She's not worth your time. Her words reminded me of the tasks I had to complete. Sissy, are you free now? Want to come to the warehouse with me? Sure. I was actually looking for you. I have some business there too. We left the meeting room, the shouts still echoing, with heavy hearts. Why does Carol come here to play? She should be having fun with friends. She looks college-aged. I pondered aloud while checking inventory in the warehouse. Apparently, she's joining the company next year. She's been visiting frequently for that. You'd think she'd rather be with friends, but she doesn't seem to have many. Sissy commented. True. I mused, feeling uneasy about Carol. Shouldn't she value the employees who support her family's business? Especially since they'll be her coworkers and supervisors next year? It's not right to treat them as mere playthings. Does she not realize she's embarrassing her parents? As I pondered these things, the pressure of my pen on the inventory notes inadvertently grew stronger. Noticing this, Sissy glanced at my notes. I get why you're angry, Lenore. She's exactly the type of person you dislike the most. She said with a wry smile. That's true, but what really irks me is the boss and the executives who say nothing. They should reprimand her for such behavior. Apparently, she's an overindulged child, born late in her father's life. Sissy explained with a gentle smile, easing me back into work mode. Thanks to her, I managed to finish the warehouse work surprisingly quickly. Exhausted from the day, I was heading home when my mobile phone rang. It was a message from Dad. Lenore. I'm coming to your company tomorrow for a business deal. If you're free, I'd like to see you. I was surprised. Dad was visiting my office? The company I work for is in the same industry as his company, and I knew they were connected, but it was the first time he had shown his face at my company in the 6 years I've been working there. I hoped to see him, but it really depended on timing, so I just replied. If I'm free, I'll come and see you. Let me know. And then closed the message. The next day, my office was busy, but things started to calm down by lunchtime. While eating, I received a message from Dad. I'll be at your company soon. I checked the time and decided to wait for him outside. As I got up, Sissy, sitting next to me, asked, Where are you rushing off to, Lenore? It's still lunch break. Oh, my dad is visiting the office today. I thought I'd go say hi since it's been a while. What? Can I come too, just to greet him? She asked excitedly. Sure, let's go together, I agreed. Sissy followed me, checking her reflection in the window and fixing her hair. I was pleased to have such an eager subordinate. While Sissy and I waited for my dad at the entrance. Is that him? She suddenly pointed to a taxi. I shook my head. Steve would have driven his own car rather than take a taxi. As we looked in the opposite direction, a shrill voice called out. Nice of you to meet me here. I pretended not to hear, but Sissy made a disgusted face as if to say this is the worst. Hey, you over there, where are you looking? I'm right here. I turned around, frustrated. And there was Carol. She was dressed inappropriately for the office, in a flouncy miniskirt and casual t-shirt, clacking her heels as she walked towards us. Excuse me, but you're mistaken. We're waiting for someone else here, I said, looking away again. In an ear-piercing tone, Carol shouted. What's with that attitude? Aren't you an employee here? Apologize right now. Sissy looked at me with a panicked expression. Yes, I'm an employee. But why should I apologize? I responded calmly. What? Carol seemed even more incensed by this. You, a lowly employee, think you can talk to me like that? Really, old lady? Well, a company needs its lowly employees, doesn't it? And for your information, I'm only 28, not an old lady. Carol burst into laughter at my reply. 28? You look much older. Is it hard being poor? I pity you, she said, pointing at me mockingly. I was furious, but I couldn't do much since she was the boss's daughter. I had to stand there, seething in silence, as she laughed. Then, "Hey, Lenore! Long time no see!" I heard a voice from afar. Approaching us was Dad, a slightly overweight, ordinary-looking man in a suit, waving his hand. "Who's that weird guy?" "Hilarious," Carol said, looking at him and laughing. That was the last straw for me. "Excuse me, that's rude." I raised my voice. "What? Who are you yelling at?" Carol yelled back. "What's going on? Are you all friends?" Unaware of the situation, Dad smiled at me kindly. "What? As if I would be friends with these people." Carol snapped at him, switching her target from me to him. Dad's expression changed immediately. "How rude to say these people when you are colleagues who work together." He was right, but Carol wasn't convinced. "Listen, old man. I'm the daughter of this company's owner. My dad is the boss. Don't lump me with these lowly, poor employees." Dad looked shocked by Carol's rudeness and her identity, then cleared his throat softly. Meanwhile, Carol looked smug, as if she had just triumphed. Remembering that Dad originally came to our company for business, I realized we couldn't afford to cause any more trouble. So I tried to apologize to Carol. But at that moment, Dad spoke in a low voice. "So, the lower ranks are the poor employees, huh? Maybe it's time to revise the salary structure." He muttered this to himself. "What? Are you mocking me? Fine. Mister, what's your name? Which subcontracting company are you from? I'll tell my dad about you. You might just ruin the company." Carol spat out. Dad, looking puzzled, thought for a moment before smiling. "Well then, let's go greet the boss. Lenore and the others, come along." The only one unfazed by the situation was Dad, who had already started walking ahead. Not wanting to be left behind, we quickly followed him. We reached the boss's office, and Dad entered first. Sissy and I followed, tense. Carol, pushing past us, rushed to her father. "Dad! This man, he..." She began to tattle immediately. Before Carol could finish, her father spoke loudly. "This man? Who are you talking to?" "I'm sorry, Steve. My daughter lacks manners." He shot Carol a sharp look to silence her, then turned to us with a smile. "Ah, it's your daughter with you today?" "Did you know about me?" I asked, surprised. Dad sat down on a sofa. "Wait, Dad," Carol protested. Dad gave me a kind look, then turned his sharp gaze to the boss. "Earlier, your daughter called my daughter and her colleague lowly, poor employees. What's this about?" The boss's face tightened. "Well, they deserved it. They were rude to me, just low-end employees." Carol continued in her shrill voice. "What?" The boss turned pale and shouted angrily at Carol. "What are you saying? This lady is the daughter of a valued client, and this man is her father and the current boss." "Eh?" Carol's face turned pale, realizing the gravity of her actions. To think such a large company still treats its employees as poor. You've become quite the boss, haven't you? If your employees are poor, shouldn't the company be ashamed? The boss was sweating profusely. "I can't leave my daughter in such a place. She'll resign today." When the boss heard that, he immediately apologized to my dad and said, "I'm terribly sorry. I've heard your daughter is very skilled. Please, not resignation. And you, apologize to him." "Wait, Dad. What's going on?" I whispered to him. "I had let the boss know that you were employed here, to look out for you. As I knew that you don't like the preferential treatment, I told him just to keep an eye out." Ignoring the boss and his daughter, Steve explained kindly. But I never thought this company would treat its employees like slaves. Lenore, you can quit now. You've done well here for 6 years. Come work for me. That's sudden. I can't just leave in the middle of the busy season. I protested. Dad seemed a bit exasperated by my response, but he eventually agreed. All right, if you insist. After this busy season, come work for my company. And you, it must be uncomfortable staying here after this. What do you say? The industry is the same. He kindly offered this to Sissy. Yes, absolutely. Sissy replied immediately. Wait, Sissy. I haven't decided yet. I protested. Sissy looked at me quizzically. Why not? Your dad's company is one of the elite in the country, and you're his daughter. Why wouldn't you go? Dad nodded in agreement with Sissy's words. I don't want to join his company just because of connections. I know Dad's company is big, but I didn't want to take the easy way. I explained. Sissy smiled happily. That's so like you, Lenore. And she continued. Lenore's father, I'm Sissy. I really appreciate that I can work with her. She is an outstanding boss. As she praised me, Dad smiled and sobbed along. I felt embarrassed and urged Dad to continue. Dad, the boss is still. Ah, right, forgot about that. Sorry, Sissy, we'll talk later. Yes. Sissy cheerfully replied. Now, boss, no need to apologize anymore. Let's end our business dealings here. As my dad finally addressed to him, he was surprised and looked up at Dad. That would be a great loss for us. I'm truly sorry. No, it's fine. This isn't because of the disrespectful behavior towards them. Then why? He asked. Please guide me. I'll improve anything. I'll definitely make improvements. The company would suffer a huge blow if they lost their dealings with Dad. That's why the boss kept apologizing repeatedly. Improvement is impossible. Once trust is lost, it can't be regained. You say employees are your priority, yet your daughter treats them like slaves. Did you think I wouldn't hear about it? I'm not sure. Even from the side, I can see Carol turned pale. I could demote you from the boss, but should I? Dad asked. Please, forgive me. The boss pleaded. Hey, Dad. Just because you're a valued client, you can't really do that, can you? I asked. I can. Dad replied with a smile, indicating he really had the power. I don't inquire deeply into the relationship between the boss and Dad, but Dad might be more powerful in this industry than I thought. With this realization, the both attitudes of my dad and the boss make sense. I won't go that far since I'm not a child, but I will end our contract. Thank you for your business. With that, he stood up, straightening his suit. Please, I'm begging you. Just for this term, please reconsider. How about a promotion for your daughter? No, a raise. She can even become an executive right now. Dad! But you said I would start from manager because of how it looks to others. An immediate promotion to executive is impossible. At that moment, my dad's look at the two changed to one of disdain. And the boss's pleading eyes were fixed squarely on Carol. Despite this, Carol still seemed dissatisfied with the difference between what her father had said about my position and her own treatment. I almost felt sorry for the boss with such an oblivious daughter. But I had reached my limit and couldn't hold back anymore. You plan to put a woman who called us lowly, poor employees, and was rude to Dad in a position of authority? I blurted out. Well, my daughter doesn't understand because she hasn't experienced the real world yet. She'll learn to respect others through the hardships of society. Respecting others has nothing to do with social experience. I interjected, louder than I intended. Carol looked up, startled, and I addressed her. A company cannot function without its employees. Even someone who has never been an executive, like me, understands this. But you don't. Why? How would I know that? Carol seemed genuinely clueless. Do you think being a daughter of privilege puts you above others? Of course. I'm from a different upbringing. It's not my decision, it's God's. To Carol's nonsensical reply, I forced a smile. Then, as the daughter of this company's boss, I'm higher than you, right? You'll listen to me? My smile was apparently so frightening that Sissy later told me it scared Carol, whose composure vanished. Fine, what do you want? This company is not your playground. If you want to play, go find your college friends. Carol hung her head in shame, her face flushed. Sissy quietly applauded me. Well said. That's my daughter. Dad laughed heartily. After that, Sissy and I spent a hectic month at work. But the second half of the busy season was unexpectedly calm. Each time our supervisors and colleagues looked puzzled, Sissy and I exchanged knowing smiles. A month later, Sissy and I resigned and joined my dad's company. Our previous company began to decline drastically. Rumors quickly spread that the abrupt termination of the contract with a major firm was to blame, prompting other companies to reconsider their dealings. Sales plummeted by 40%, most employees started job hunting, and the company's decline accelerated. The general meeting decided the crisis was due to the boss's fault, and he was ousted. His brother is now trying to rebuild the company. According to Dad, this brother is well respected. The company might be reborn into something better. On the condition that the former boss's family no longer be involved, Dad began moves to restart dealings with them. I also heard from Dad that the former boss's family began to lose their possessions, eventually selling their house. I don't know where they went, but I doubt a family accustomed to such wealth could adapt to normal life. In fact, Carol reportedly got a job at a grocery store, acted arrogantly to customers, got into an argument, and was fired within hours, becoming somewhat of a legend. In my personal life, I managed to convince Dad to let me start as a regular employee instead of directly becoming an executive. However, I'm aware that I'll eventually take over the company. So, I balance my everyday tasks with assisting the executive team. Constantly amazed by their innovative ideas that never occur to me, sometimes feeling overwhelmed. But every time I feel like my head is about to explode, Sissy is there by my side, saying, Lenore, let's finish this task first. Then we can decide the priority for the next ones. Her support keeps me grounded. Sometimes the pressure of being the boss's daughter feels crushing, but with Sissy around, I can stay confident and cope. Interestingly, Dad also likes Sissy, and sometimes the three of us go out for drinks. Every time Dad gets tipsy and tells this joke, Lenore will be the next president, and Sissy the next executive officer. Don't even think about getting married and retiring, you too. He often tells this story laughingly. However, what Dad doesn't know is that I'm secretly in a relationship. My desire to get married is still a secret from Dad.